So you had these three population explosions. One at the beginning, we adopted agriculture. Then we had city-states. Population went from 4 million, say, to 200 million just in a 5,000 or 6,000 years. The second major stage, again, I'm skipping over feudalism and a lot of other things, but the second thing that happened is the fossil fuel age. We learned to tap into this stored up sunlight, solar energy. And the population went from less than a billion to about 1 billion into World War II. The third population explosion is happening now. Within my lifetime, since the end of World War II, 1950 or so, the population of the Earth is tripled. From a couple of billion to 6 or 7 billion now. The population of the U.S. from 100 million to over 300 million. All right, and there's a lot of stuff that's coming out. People are starting to sort of put this puzzle together, but in terms of human social evolution, one thing is important. People that have influenced me, again, E.O. Wilson has done this, a guy named Peter Turchin, and Thomas Piketty wrote a really, just a best-selling book a couple of years ago called Capital in the 21st Century. His basic argument is that in the 20th century, beginning of the 20th century, you still had basically nation states and sort of this remnants of feudalism, ruling classes, oligarchs, plutarchs, and so on. World War I, the Great Depression, World War II really wiped that out, especially in Europe. It was sort of the great leveler. So it freed up this dynamism of capitalism. Capitalism became global. Instead of each nation protecting its own interests and hoarding wealth and so on. Again, it was a reshuffling of the deck and opened up the whole thing. And the superorganism was ready for this. And you had this incredible expansion of economic output, trade, globalization, movement of people around the world, and so on. But the negative effect has also been overwhelming. And most of it, again, has happened in my lifetime. And this is, I think, kind of a mistake that people talk about global warming make. They're always talking about the pre-industrial concentration of CO2, for example, being 280 parts per million, which is true. But when I was born, it was about 300 parts per million. So slight increase. In my lifetime, it's gone up from 300 parts per million to now 410 parts per million, and it seems to be accelerating. And this is absolutely incredible. If you look at the sort of the history of CO2, in the Pleistocene, which is sort of the era of ice ages, CO2 levels fluctuated between something like around 240 parts per million. When it got up to 280, there was a warm period like we're in now. It got down to 200, there was an ice age. So fluctuation of 40 parts per million either way. Now we've jacked it up by, it'll probably double within my lifetime. And it's starting to have really devastating consequences on the planet, the heat levels, circulation systems, and biodiversity. The other thing is sort of the decimation of non-human animal species. A recent article by Paul Ehrlich calls it the biological annihilation. We're crashing nature, and nobody really knows about that. Nobody's really paying attention because we're so isolated in the human economy. As individuals, what we care about most, can we go to the grocery store or the market, the village market, and get food, come back and so on.